we are so excited to talk with you. And we're so excited, for our audience to get to know you more because, of course, like me, I'm sure many people follow you, but just get to know you more, hear how your summer is going, how your law school year went, and all these things that sometimes, I mean, you share with us, with all your public and all your followers, so much, but I'm sure there's even more to share. And I can't wait to discover it and to share it with everybody else. So
Thank you.
thanks for being here, of
I thank you
course.
for inviting me. I'm really honored, and I really just appreciate this opportunity to talk about my story, and hopefully that can empower or inspire others. And I mean that's the whole point of why I started my social media. So I really am excited to and there definitely is a lot more behind the scenes.
I'm
Um
sure. I really want to hear about it. The good and the bad, by the way, right? That's like I
Always.
really look forward to the good and the bad. And yes, that's the reason why we invited you because as you know, the title of this podcast is Leaders on the Mic. And I'm going to be very blunt about it and I'm very transparent about it all the time. We are lucky to know a lot of leaders, but not all of them use their voice to stand up and, use the mic for great causes. And you are one of them. And you're one of the most beautiful ones, but also one of the most exciting ones because you're not preachy. Your account and everything that you do on social media is not like, oh, I'm this and I'm that, and you should be this and you should be that. Or no, you just with your life, with your everyday life, you show us what's possible. And I think that's a huge gift for all of us. People your age, of course, younger people that are looking to decide what to do, but even people my age, right? Because we see you and we just are so proud of you, and your mic has been really joyful, and you bring a lot of enthusiasm and hope to all of your followers, me being one of them, of course. So thank you for being here again, and thanks for being a leader on the mic. That's really, really important.
Thank you. That really first is just like the greatest compliment for me to receive, that I can instill hope. I think hope is one of the most powerful emotions and motivations that a person can have. So that's
Well,
that
you too.
really
And
is my lifelong goal.
and for somebody like I've been in this earth for so long, and just to see you as the representative of your generation, I just know that will be better, which is so, so good. Not only for me, because I already had my life, but for my kids, for the world, for this country, for our country of origin, which is Mexico, I know, which is great. And every all that, right? So yes, hope is hope. But tell us about you. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Ada Cruz. Actually, Ada comes from Adamari, which is, a Hispanic name that my mom gave me. And my parents are originally from Oaxaca, Mexico, and they crossed over together year 2000, undocumented. And my mom had me at 17 years old in Florida, which is where I grew up. And like many immigrant parents, she prioritized education from a very, very, very young age. And I fell in love with it. And I was very lucky to learn at a young age that knowledge is power. And there's really nothing that you can set your mind on and not achieve if you have that perseverance and determination. And my mom was just an everyday living example of that. Just one of the everything I am today is because of her, 1000%. And now I'm 23 and I cannot imagine having a 6-year-old and working, outside and hard labor and putting food on the table and taking night classes to learn English. Like she is superwoman through and through. So that's very important for me to point out and to thank her for that.
You know what, we get just the way I sorry to interrupt you. We get that as your followers. We get that admiration almost in every one of your posts. So great. Please go ahead.
And so, just I loved school growing up, and my mom supported me in every way she could, even if she didn't always have the knowledge or the resources. She just tried to put me in the pathway of opportunity so that I could, go further in my life than she ever had the chance to. And um, yeah, actually, it was her lifelong dream for me to go to Harvard, which I didn't even know what Harvard was growing up. Like, there was just this name, and she manifested it for me through and through. Actually, for my quinceañera, instead of having a quinceañera party, we went to Boston to visit Harvard, and
I love that story.
it's so funny, and like it's just an incredible memory to have now because it did work out, and I recorded, and as many of my followers and many other people have seen the reaction video of me getting into Harvard, and just what that meant. It was such a relief. It was just like every sacrifice, every hour that she spent out in working for me, caring for me and doing everything. It all paid off, and she's so proud of me, and that's really what motivates me. All this time, of course, still being undocumented, and that I think that influenced me at a young age, because the law was always a part of my life, for better or for worse. It was always something that I grew up fearing that my parents would get deported, and thinking about what that would mean for my life. And I'm so lucky that my family was never separated. And when I turned 21, I applied to adjust her status, and it obviously took a while, like these cases always take. But she is now fully a resident and has been able to visit her family. Actually, right now she is in Oaxaca with my aunt, who just finished her PhD. So my mom flew over to surprise her.
Oh my God. So you come from a long line of overachievers.
Yeah, maybe. It's all them. All the intelligence was passed down.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so I was first in my family to go to college, and a lot of people know what the struggle is in not knowing what you don't know, not knowing what questions you have to ask, or for just internships or at classes or interviews. Just everything is just so new. You don't have the generational knowledge that can give you a boost, or any kind of warning. So I was really lucky that I have had great mentors and a community of other first gen students. I just remarkable people at Harvard, and I really am. Something that I've learned, and something really that I hope to pass on to anyone listening or who follows me, is that you don't have to ever do anything alone. And especially being maybe for like the oldest siblings, who we feel the need to do everything, by ourselves and figure it out and be very independent. And
Mhm.
it's okay. Sometimes we can ask for help, and that's totally fine. And there's amazing already leadership, Latinos, Latinas who have been forging this path for us. So I'm just super really honored to be a part of that, and to support anyone else who maybe resonates with my story. Obviously, as I'm sure so many people in the Latino community know, behind all the hope, there's always hardship. The hope is born from hardship. Um, and that comes from you being the daughter of undocumented Mexican immigrants. But really, my passion for the law, and why I want to go into criminal defense work, and why also like immigration work, but really just defending people who have been portrayed as criminals in this country, is partly my mom's story and my family's experience with the immigration system, but also something that I'm more private about, is my brother, my only brother, my younger brother, was wrongfully accused of charges at one point in his life, and it changed the course of my life. That it really is my reason for being in law school, my reason for wanting to go into criminal defense work.
Wow.
And luckily, we are so blessed that we had great counsel, and obviously not everyone gets good representation, but we were very lucky, and we have so much amazing support. But it was obviously very difficult, and there was a lot of uncertainty during the whole case, which dragged out for very long, more than a year, nearly 2 years. And now, I can look back, and I can breathe a sigh of relief and say that everything is okay, and we move on and we move forward. But it was that experience is just has
Mhm.
forever changed me, and
Wow.
that's why this is it's an area of passion for me, and it will continue to be. And I hope that and I honestly feel very lucky, because sometimes you find your passions, and sometimes your passions find you. And this was definitely an example of the latter. And so, yeah, my family, to sum it up, my family is my entire reason for everything that I do. And I'm so lucky that I come from, the family, the culture, the people that I do. And I just hope to pass that on to anyone that I can.
Wow. Ada, I mean, I want to comment like at every line. I want to congratulate you with everything that you're kind of sharing. And I am in awe. I mean, honestly, wow. I mean, yes, following you on social media is fantastic, but getting to know you more is just even better. It's amazing everything that you've shared. I have so many comments. I think you introduce yourself fabulously. And the only thing that I'm going to add is your favorite popular quote, which is education is the reason why my parents risked their lives to cross the border. And that is just so inspiring. And it's, you know what? Again, because you're a role model, because you're kind of representing all your generation. I mean, we do this social media campaign, and every May we actually, talk about, the graduations and everything, and the way Latinos receive that diploma is exactly the representation of what you're saying, right? It's like that diploma is the reason why all of your parents crossed the border, right? And so it's the legacy that they're giving you, which of course changed your life. Imagine that you wouldn't have gone, to school, and that you wouldn't have achieved everything that you are. So thank you. That quote is so inspiring. And I have so many comments to what you said. One of them being that I believe that if somebody asked me what would I like to tell, my Ana at your age, I would say, that, challenges and failure are not your enemies, because almost all the time your mission has to do with all those episodes where maybe it started wrong, and maybe it of course suffered, you suffer them, but then they teach you who you really are, and they really make you find within you all that power. And it looks like what happened to your wonderful brother was something like that. And of course the not suffering, I don't want to say, but like the hardships of your parents, right? The encouragement that she gave you through all that time. So it is so incredible. And when you think about law, that's true. I mean, law really gives you the tools, and that's so important. And I'm so glad that you're achieving it at Harvard, which was your dream and your mom's dream. I also have to add some more to your introduction. You're an avid reader. Some people may not know that you're a boxer and a runner and a dancer. I think some of those things are mentioned usually, but it's just an incredible story. And what I love is that you have learned Nahuatl.
Yes.
At least a little bit. I'm sure that Nahuatl is a much more complicated than one could think. But the fact that you have put yourself into that path, and that's really amazing. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's always been a lifelong dream. So my parents, Mexican, but they come from very indigenous communities, and my dad actually, his first language was not Spanish, it was Zapoteco, which is a dialect in the Oaxacan region.
Of course, I love it. Yes, of course.
And growing up in the US, my mom, she gave me, actually, Ada Cruz is a perfect example. She gave me an English first name and a Hispanic middle name. She wanted me to be able to assimilate. And I think that's a big concern in general.
Of course.
And so I learned Spanish growing up because they couldn't speak English. But as my mom started learning English, she really just wanted for me to not struggle with, having to balance those two languages. So she really prioritized English, and she never really let my dad speak Zapoteco when I was around, or when my brother and I were around, so it wouldn't confuse us. I wish she had, obviously, because yes. I'm sure I would have picked it up.
Of course.
But, I totally understand, where she was coming from, and she didn't want me to suffer, get behind in school or anything. But yeah, so because of that, I've just always wanted to really connect with what I think of, my mother tongue, what's native to me, what's in my blood, and that's my indigenous roots. And so, one way in which I tried to do that throughout college was really becoming part of the cultural clubs, Mexican American, and also the indigenous club, which is really, I grew up with my mom and I. We actually participated in Aztec dancing, and really leaning into kind of the tradition of that. And um, the language is just another part of it that I really hope to one day be able to truly go back to, my motherland, and be able to understand them in the way that I was always meant to. Now what is the most widely spoken dialect in all of Mexico, so and it's more accessible to learn
Yeah.
without having to be there. And I was really lucky. I met some incredible indigenous students at Harvard in graduate schools too. It was like a cross school club, and the whole point was to celebrate this indigenous culture and to learn about it. And so I took courses with experts in the language, people who really that was their native language. And we just it's been a journey like anything else, and I'm still very much on that journey and will forever be on it. But that's always been something that I've strived to connect with, my true heritage.
And that's another thing that your generation, I love about your generation, which is, and you're obviously, again, a trendsetter, but there's this pride of where we come from that didn't exist in my generation. As you were saying, sometimes even in Mexico, right? You needed to kind of assimilate. And, the first option was English, the second was French. But now very few people actually thought about, like, let's speak Nahuatl, let's learn Mixtec, let's learn Quechua in Peru, right? I mean, something like that. And so your generation is just so proud, right? It's like, this is who we are, and it's fantastic. And I'm not going to make this comment politically, but socially, because I am just so excited with our presidenta, right, in Mexico, that is so honoring that part of the indigenous heritage of our country. And it's the most beautiful one. Let's face it. I mean, let's face it. I mean, our ancestors were operating the brain when people were killing each other in Europe, right? Like the Middle Ages, they were really horrible. In Spanish, actually, they have a name like Dark Ages, because they were, people were eating each other and killing each other. And here in our countries, people were, using the zero and designing astronomy calendars that till today are the most advanced in the world. So that part we really need to honor it constantly. And I don't know if you saw, but when La Presidenta in Mexico was inaugurated, I was lucky enough to be there, and she changed all the ceremony. Like, the ceremony was the first hour. She was down with the people, and she got the blessing of all the the 130 very, very top indigenous, groups in the country. And people were shocked. I mean, like, oh my God, that's crazy. And I was like, it shouldn't be crazy. That's actually how it should have started from the beginning, right? And like that, everything she does. Yesterday, she was celebrating that there will be the first indigenous Supreme Court justice. And he's going to be the leader of the Supreme Court, and he was elected by the people. And that's really exciting. And he said that he actually is not going to wear the European, cap and gown and all that. He's going to wear the indigenous, suits and all dresses that the indigenous people in his area used when they were judges. So I think that's really exciting. I'm just happy to kind of see these two parts of who we are connecting finally. And so anyway, so it's exciting that you honor it, that you love it, and that you wear it so beautifully, because that's another thing. You wear it beautifully. We were commenting this morning when we were planning on this session, how in your social media and everything you say, you're like the perfect Harvard student. I mean, you wake up, it's like, oh, my chai latte and my, all these beautiful things. And at the same time, you also combine with this like beautiful traditions or colors of people in Oaxaca. And so, like, you combine it perfectly. You're like perfectly both. And that's the way it should be, right? You are a 200%er, we say. You're 100% your Mexican heritage, and also you're 100% American. And they don't have to fight. They actually live together happily. And so that's really exciting. Tell us about that. Tell us about how did you find harmony and peace in those two places when, my generation actually struggled terribly. I mean, you either chose one or chose the other one, but you could never be both because I don't know why. I was not raised here, so I don't know why. But I see people that were raised here in my generation that really had this struggle. Tell us how you came to be in this joyful place of unapologetically both.
Wow, that's a large question. If I had an easy solution, I would just like wrap it up and say I just hand it out to anyone who will
Yes.
listen. But it really is. It is a struggle, and it definitely was something that I struggled with growing up, because I'm from Naples, Florida, which if you're not familiar with the area, it's a bubble inside of a bubble almost. It's very white, very Republican, and it's surrounded by these very poor, like much poorer immigrant communities. And then you get into Naples and it's very wealthy, and it's not at all diverse. And so that was the situation I grew up in. I actually had my mom's boss's boss was able to get me into a private school in Naples, the one that his children went to. He was just a very generous man, and has always been just a great, really just a blessing in our family, in our lives, and in my life for sure. And we have a very close connection. And I was really lucky to be able to go to this private school with incredible academic resources. My mom and I often talk about, would I have gone into Harvard? Like what would my life be like if I just went to the public school that I was zoned for? And we'll never know the answer to the question. I just know that I'm very grateful that I had that experience. But it was hard, because I remember I was the first Hispanic student to enroll at that school, and it's since it had been created.
Wow.
And so my mom, I remember she like sat me down, and I was starting school, and it's a dress code, so you need to do the polos, but we got the ones that cost $5 like the Gap, and not the ones that cost like $120, like everyone else with the brands. And she sat me down, she's like, you have to realize that you're not like them, and you come from an entirely different culture. And that would just became part of my reality. And I would go to school, and it was very obvious the differences in our socioeconomics, families, and in our cultural backgrounds, and our languages that we spoke. It was very different. But I mean, the kids were fantastic. Some of them I've been friends with them for over 10
My
years.
God, it's so great to hear that.
Yeah.
Tell us.
Yeah, and they're like, one of them I actually was on the phone with 2 days ago, and we're catching up. And just, since we were like 11, but it was an interesting experience to grow up inside such a difference, with my peers being so different from me, and me struggling and like wanting to assimilate and wanting to be like them and wanting them to not notice that I'm different. Also, like I go home and I speak Spanish. It's like I don't want to lie to myself in either circumstance. And also, when you're just in middle school and high school, and you there's peer pressures, and you want to fit in, and there's all of all of that going on. And I think I remember an experience that really stayed with me was, it was Hispanic Heritage Month, and obviously I was very involved in organizing all the activities. I was president of the Spanish Society, like naturally. And my teacher, one of my great mentors in my life, she knew that I did Aztec dancing, and she asked if I wanted to perform an Aztec dance in front of the whole school, like in front of everyone. And that was the most terrifying thing that she could have ever asked me, because a part of me was like struggling with, sharing my culture and like being very open about it. And it was almost like embarrassing, to be so different, and to wear it proudly was something that was an exotic idea.
Of course.
But I did it, of course. Like I couldn't say no. There was, unfortunately, honestly, very fortunately, that she made me, step into the spotlight like that. And I just remember I was so nervous, and I had everything, like my feathers, very colorful and very large, and just, fully embracing it. And I performed, and everyone, I think everyone clapped. Honestly, part of it, I was like, I can't even remember, because it was such a whirlwind. But then afterwards, one of my friends who like she had never seen this, side of me, this part of my culture. And she came up to me. She was like, "Oh my gosh, that was so incredible." And she was like, "I need a picture." And because I was in my full, in my full attire, and she was like, she was just so mesmerized. And I was like, wow. It was really,
Wow, what an
yeah.
experience, Ada.
So I felt welcomed, and I felt like this is not something to be embarrassed of. This is something that is incredible, and it is incredible. So that really, like, the experience stayed with me, and I was like, okay, I think it's really cool actually that I have both of these sides of me, and that I don't have to hide one from the other.
Absolutely. And what an incredible experience that at those years where you're actually trying to fit in, right? Normally, whether you were white or black or whatever, it doesn't matter. You want to fit in. And I'm sure that you were very successful at it because you were a great student and a great performer in so many ways and a good girl and everything. And then suddenly somebody tells you, okay, you've been trying to fit in. Okay, now you're going to show us how different you are from all of us. And then suddenly you have to stand up and do it. The good news is you knew you did it really well. So having that talent made you unique and made you shine. So what an incredible lesson of, wow, I don't actually have to fit in. I actually can bring in all my beautiful, different, and uniqueness, and it becomes actually a talent and something admired by everybody. What an experience. That's crazy. Was your mom in the audience?
Yeah, she was.
Oh,
And I'm pretty sure she has a video, but uh
I'm sure. I'd love to see that video one day. I mean, I'm sure it's amazing. And the fact that but that comes from your mom, because the fact that your mom signed you up for those classes and put all the effort that I'm sure it took to go regularly, to pay, to buy the suits, to, the practices and everything, she built that pride on you. I mean, you know how many people, not from Mexico, but from any other country, are saying like, oh, take tap dancing or take ballet, or no, your mom was like, no, take Aztec dancing. That's amazing. That talks about where you come from this incredible woman that just knew that that was part of you and it was the best thing to do to honor it. So that's wow, what a story. I'm so incredibly inspired. And the fact that when we talked about the two, like your two, like joyfully living together experience, and that you thought of that example, obviously it marked you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because I mean, maybe now I'm a lot better at balancing both and honoring both, but it's not something that comes naturally, I don't think, to anyone.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Especially in this country, I think. As an immigrant, I've noticed that in this country, I mean, you find so many people that think that speaking a second language is actually bad and that warrant you speaking English only, and oh, another language, and what is it? And, I was lucky to do my master's in Europe and live 2 years in Europe. And in Europe, people know 4 languages. And the more languages you know, the better you are. And if you only knew one language, they look down on you.
Yeah.
Like that's actually in the whole world. But in this country, if you speak another language that is not the standard, people kind of, not everybody I know, but some people kind of. So for you to have that, what a gift,
Yeah.
especially in a culture like this one, right? So, wow, that's an incredible. And I cannot even think about how many times you did more or less the same exercise with different parts of your culture all through, like high school, and now you still do it, and of course in undergrad. Um, and what a gift I'm sure that was for most everybody.
I think a big part of it is realizing that it is a gift to share that, our culture with others. And that's just a lesson that takes time to learn. But now I'm like, and so now anything else is so easy, like even being at Harvard, which is a very white elitist space,
Of
but
course.
there was actually so many other people that I shared, similar background stories, similar family stories. And now that I'm in California, this past weekend, I'm meeting friends and we're going to dances where it's like traditional banda music, cumbias, and so it's such a beautiful thing to connect with community.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think it's great that again I'm going generational here, but so different. Like we just finished about 4 months ago we finished a study about Latino youth. And what we found is that also, the social environment has helped in terms of Latinos have started to just drive pop culture, right? So people here, as you were saying, in California, when they go to, since about 2 or 3 years, actually I've seen about 3 or 4 years ago, when you go to Coachella and that huge music festival where, of course, all the trendiness happened, um, you know, Latinos, Mexican, Puerto Ricans, Venezuelans are opening, the whole thing, and they are in, the special schedules, and people know who. Of course, that's how all this like Peso Pluma and Grupo Frontera and all these people started. And you turn around and you see all these gringos going crazy with it, singing songs that they have no idea what they mean, but they're dancing to them, right? And you're like, yes, that's when you feel super, super, super proud. So your generation just has also those examples, right, around that say, hey, we're worth it, we're cool. People that know good music want our music, and I think
And good
that's
food.
and good food, exactly. And can I tell you? And I don't know if you follow. I follow so many of these people, gringos that have Latina girlfriends or Latino husbands, or even the British and American girls having Spanish and more than things Mexican husbands. Or oh my God, I love how they just melt into the culture. Like you crack up how funny they are and how they trap them, and they even get like addicted to our addictions. And it's just so so proud. And so that's a great, it's a great moment that you're growing up in and contributing to. So that's really, really good. And so switching a little bit towards that persona that you've built in social media, right? Because one thing is to live your life, which is amazing. I think everybody wants your life in so many ways. But another thing is to be able to communicate it, and to communicate it in a way that people want to hear about it, right? You are so authentic that nobody would think, oh, she's showing up. No, showing off. I'm sorry. Nobody would think that. People want to like, oh my God, tell me more, tell me more. Tell us, how did you find that persona? Because you already found your persona in your personal life, which is fantastic. But how did you find your persona publicly? How did that happen? How did you start?
Right. I think that is also something that you just learn along the way, along like many years of posting. I mean, because it started off very authentically, I think. And honestly, because I didn't expect anyone to watch my videos, so there was no reason to like be a certain person. It was just for fun to make little vlogs of my day, going to class and, hanging out with my friends and cooking and working out and then just editing it. And also, there's way too many videos and pictures on my camera roll. It is an absurd amount. So I'm just always been trying to capture memories. And so TikTok was a way for me to make these, easy, cute clips of my day and that I could one day look back on. And so it started my freshman year of college, and it was just fun. And then it got popular, and I didn't expect it to. And so I just kept just making more. And then I realized, oh, it's not just about my day to day, it's just also about who I am. And if there's one thing I'm very transparent and authentic about, it's where I come from and my family story. Just because I think that so many other people can, learn something from like immigrants, parents. I have so much admiration for people who risk everything for the future, not only their future, but the future of their kids, who they won't even maybe, reap all of those benefits. But so it was just a way to connect with other people outside of my city, my state, my country even. And I mean, if there's one thing I don't want to be, it's fake, because what really motivates people and what really people resonate with is the truth.
Yeah.
And
And you're
I
so transparent. You come across so transparently. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but I had to
no.
say that. Tell me, tell me.
So I think that over time I just kept making what I've just, since day one, and that's just to share my life and who I am. And obviously with social media, there's always that layer of, okay, we always want to be careful what we put on the internet. I'm sure many people relate to having very protective parents, and, especially parents who are maybe scared of what social media could do and all these horror stories. And, what if your employer sees this, or what if, just it's just this general sense of fear.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very generational thing as well, that I was like, no, mom, it's okay for me to post it. It's okay for me to talk about how much financial aid I got from Harvard. I remember that one video because I wanted to encourage other students, don't worry about the tuition. Don't worry, apply because they will help you. And I was very transparent. I said, if you're under this tax bracket, they will give you a full ride. I show them, I look at my account, $0 balance, because I'm so privileged that, Harvard was very generous with the financial aid. And my mom was so scared. She was like, but what if they what if it's private information? She was just very nervous for me, and with valid reason. And I said, no, this is good to share this information, to like help others, not be scared about that obstacle. And so there is definitely just, I think, having a little bit of common sense about what to put out on the internet, and also just like thinking through the information that you spread. But at the end of the day, if it comes from a good place, that's what matters. And
Absolutely.
so it's definitely been, because my mom has total access to my account, and she always looks at all of my videos, and she always gets like a little sometimes scared. She's like, oh, but what if? And I'm like, it's okay. This is the whole point,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
social media.
Mom, I'm a lawyer, so
Yeah,
I
exactly.
Yeah, that's so funny. But you're right. It's a generational thing. Yes, we get like, I totally get your mom because I would get nervous about it. It's like, check this and don't do that. And I also would be cautious, but not with any, reason, to be honest with you, because we should be much more like you. But I love how, for example, you shared your statements and how you got the money and everything, but you also share like, hey, I woke up with a little depression, or oh, I know what to do when I feel down, or today I just feel so tired, so it's not all like, hey, I'm perfect.
Yeah.
No, you're super authentic on who you are. And that is incredibly attractive. I remember you shared something about your boyfriend lately. I'm not going to say it here, but when you shared things about like, hey, I'm with him, and like he hasn't called, and then somebody's like, hey, I broke up. And it was hard at the beginning, but like you're so fresh. I love that. Like fresca, like more like the fresh in Spanish, like fresca. Like it's
Yeah.
so refreshing the way you do that. How you were you always like that, or did social media help you?
Oh, definitely social media helped me. I think that honestly, seeing other influencers, seeing other content creators, and then be very open about, this is, I'm going through a breakup, and this is what my day looks like, and I'm struggling, and this is hard. And it's like, yeah, that is hard. And I can resonate with that because I have felt that too. And if we're just like honest with each other, we can connect so much easily, because we have a shared experience that isn't perfect happiness and joy, but it is something real. And that's so much more meaningful. And so, like, for example, like law school, I've loved it. I've loved it, but it is challenging and it is tiring, when I'm going, because I also work part-time as a server, as a waitress at a Tex-Mex place. And that was a very honestly overwhelming experience because I hadn't done a job that was like so hectic. And I don't know if anyone who's done that kind of work, I'm just so impressed because I went in and I was like, I can do math and run models all day and like read cases and argue in front of a judge, but handling 10 tables at one time and running around and it was very hard. And I was like, oh wow, this is tiring, and I also have school, and I also have other obligations, but that's life. And a lot of people um can connect with that more easy than if I was like, oh, I wake up and I'm already like looking perfect, and I already finished all of my homework, and I already everything is
Exactly.
fantastic. Like, yeah, it's just
And
not
seeing
real.
you juggling all this is so empowering. I can see kids, especially people younger than you, but even older. I mean, I get inspired. So the way you juggle it with such grace and such smarts, you always, even in challenging times, you always come out like, I see you like stronger. It's just really, it's an incredible journey that you take us with you. And we can watch. So I think that's one of your biggest gifts, that you're able to take us with you in a very realistic journey. that of course is very successful, which of course it's so much fun. And then you're so pretty, which of course it's easy. But it's a journey, which is really, really good. I love it. And another thing that I like is that, and again, I love all this other influencers that are political and are activists. So I admire them in their own way. But the one thing you do, I feel, and then of course, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like you barely ever are controversial. Even if you talk about things that maybe others don't talk because you're so open about it. But my question is, so I know that some of your colleagues who I love are like activists and they want to be president and they're for one party and the other one is from the other one. And then so they get a lot of, a lot of repression, I have to say, from TikTok or from, Instagram. And do you get that? Like, have you ever had videos like taken down or something?
Definitely not over political things, but I think that, and even though I see myself, like with my career, for example, being at the side of immigrants or being at the side of defendants, like I see myself as leading a very political life and definitely an advocate. And I, in the past, 5 years, for as long as I really have had a car, I've tried to be part of like any kind of political organization or protests or, like that. I am not at all scared. And that's 100% part of who I am. But on social media, I don't, just because I see that as part of like what I do, it's not really what I talk about. But I definitely want to make it clear, like I am a daughter of immigrants. I definitely do not, align with the current administration, or I think that's pretty clear just because that's who I am and that's my livelihood. And then also though, I feel like I hesitate to attach to like a certain like specific party or specific person just because everything is changing all the time and I am learning and I am changing. So I think that I have principles and just ideas that I stand behind, but sometimes, and this just happens a lot in this country with people being very with being like the polarization, just picking one side and sticking to it. And it's never that easy. People come from, they think certain ways because of how they are and where they came from, and I think that understanding that and understanding human complexity and understanding people's lived experiences influences why they believe certain things, and that's so true for me. And so just trying to keep in mind like people are people and it's never just there's a right or wrong answer, and so, and just always trying to keep an open mind. I think that one of my main values is, well, kindness and also just being open-minded. And being truly open-minded means, like being able to accept that other people have different views because of where they come from and that there's meaning, there's no right or wrong and we're both equally valid. And there's still a way to connect and move forward and make healthcare more accessible and make, people have greater rights and have housing and have accessible food. And so despite differences. So I think it's just like social media sometimes makes it very like one or the other, And so I try to just embody just like, no, people's life is complicated. And
yeah, absolutely.
That's just how we are. Yeah.
It sounds like you believe in what people say, like you're an issue woman, not a party woman.
Yeah, I would say.
And I think that's fair. And actually probably most of us are, right? All those extremes that it's like total loyalty to a party or something it's kind of, again, I'm going to get generational, but it's kind of an old wave, right? Like young people are like, hey, I like some things of this, some things, from the other side. And you're right. It's hard with the current administration just because we're immigrants and sometimes it feels like they're targeting us. But yeah, we're issue people. Like people sometimes go, oh, how come, Latinos vote for certain party? I'm like, well, ask them, first of all. And when did we not get the right to choose different parties? Right. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, but like it's a choice and it's our choice, not anybody else's. So no, I agree with you. But I think you really communicate a big activist strike within you, but you don't do it in a kind of like it's not you like everybody can follow you because independently of you being such an activist, you're very reasonable. And so anyway, it just, I don't think there's any conflict in the way you were doing. I think you're doing it really, really well.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah, I try to, it's not like something that I want to like pull out and be flashy about. You know what I mean? I want to,
yeah,
like, I will show up there if you need me when it matters. But it doesn't, I don't need to have the spotlight for that. I just, you know what I mean? It's because community is not about one person has a spotlight. It's about the strength and just having each other and, um, things that I do like in my free time that no one asked me to do. Like once I started law school, there's Food Not Bombs, which we just make warm meals for, people in the community on Friday nights. And I make rice with my mom's recipe just because that's one of the things that I know how to do.
love it.
Uh,
One of the few.
she prioritized my education, so I did not spend too much time in the kitchen.
Of course, I hear that. I hear you. I have to say, I'm the same. Yeah, love it.
When I was growing up, I saw my mom late at night trying to learn English and trying to get her GED just because she never got her high school diploma. So she wanted to at least still get,
I
that kind of.
saw that. That's amazing.
And so now I teach English and GED classes at the library and just as a volunteer, because I know the struggle and I know that I can help with that, and
Of course, of course.
I'm very involved in prison reform movements, and I write letters to prisoners and we send them books, and it's just something that I do on like Tuesdays after, you know what I mean, just because, and it's not something that I need to be announcing to the whole world or be, the top spot on my resume or anything, because I just want it to be real to who I actually am as a person.
Well, you're incredibly impressive when you get to know those, like, what do you do in your free time? I'm like, oh my God, you can even do that too. That's crazy that you're volunteering and doing. It's amazing, I gotta say. Now I have a question for you, also talking about social media. Have you ever had moments when your audience actually shifted your perspective instead of you shifting all of us perspective in so many ways? Have you ever felt like, certain groups or certain follower actually made you double think what you kind of thought before?
I mean, definitely. And I think that one example is I think there's a mutual sense of accountability in like, this was just like a small thing, but it comes to mind in that when one of my vlogs, at school, I was like, oh, now I'm stopping at Target to grab some things. And so people were like, oh, Target is, and at that point, Target was getting a lot of backlash, and in
Oh, you're
general, they
right.
still are. But,
Oh,
and I was like, I guess I don't think about certain, like some things just kind of, you know what I mean, go over my head, or especially being someone, and I can say, I have a Harvard degree and this is an amazing credential, but that doesn't make me better than anyone else, And I think that's something that my followers have continuously kept me humble, and just really thinking. And I obviously, everyone sometimes needs to be humbled because, especially if you have great goals in your life and you achieve them and you become a role model, it can sometimes, your sense of yourself can be a little inflated, and I am totally guilty of that. um
there's
so
a part that is fair. And actually, we Latinos should learn to do a little bit more.
that's true, you should.
I was raised with Calladita te ves más bonita and don't make waves and
Yeah,
don't. But sometimes we have to. And one of the things we have to do sometimes is being a little bit of a show off. I think that's important. I love that from everything that you do.
right. And I think it's important to know when to turn that on, in certain
You're
rooms.
right.
If it's a room full of like white men who are very privileged, oh yeah, I'm turning it on. Like you will know that I studied math at Harvard. Yes, you will.
I love that. That's exactly it. Those are the things that people have to learn from you. Like our Latinos, all of our, Latinos have to learn. It's like, yes, there are moments where your credibility is very important, especially with the people that don't give us the credibility, right? I mean, I think that's fantastic. I love that. I love your example. I
Yeah.
see you. I see you going into that girl. Yeah, good. I love it. And dazzling them. It's like, and they don't even know where this came from.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like,
And then they're like, whoa. Yeah. And then, but also, I can come back home and be at, a quince años and just be normal and just be very humble and grounded. And
absolutely.
so it's learning, which, when do you have to be that person? Yeah, but I got very lucky just because my mom, she's just a great example for everything, and really just she has always worked in the golf course industry, and she worked her way up, starting from the lowest low, slowly learning English, slowly getting, chemical licenses, and then becoming, assistants and working her way up. And uh, many people don't know, but the golf course industry, she will go to a meeting and she will be the only female in the like a hundred managers, and at a golf course club convention, and she will be the only woman, and not only woman, but she's an immigrant,
Right.
English not
Yes.
first language.
Probably one of the few Latinos.
Yeah, one of the few Latinos,
Yeah.
honestly. And then even within being a woman, and she walks proudly into every room that she's in.
Mm.
And so yeah, that's, of course I learned how to be confident.
And I've seen her on your social media. She's also very pretty. I know where you get your genes from.
Yeah, definitely my mom.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know about your dad, but like definitely your mom had something to do there. That's so nice. Now, I know that oh God, I wish I had so much more time with you. But anyway, but I want to address this, and I promise you it'll be the last. I'm gonna let you go because we've been here for a while. Again, I can't believe the time flew so fast.
It really did.
It did. You're amazing. But one of the reports that we do, and this is something that you have spoken about, that's why I want to address it. One of the reports we do, we've done till today 69 reports, but one of them is media. And the reason why we've measured media is because we realize that most of the stereotypes and most of those preconceived ideas that are false about Latinos are, made by media. And, the reason that we have to actually tell those, people sometimes when you get into a room and you have to, kind of show who you are is because the stereotypes don't help us, right?
Right.
And they come from, media. And what I meant by media is entertainment and news, right? Traditional entertainment and news. And so we found that in the last 8 years, we've only had an average of 3% of the leads. And unfortunately, half of them are negative, right? The narcos and, all this different, I mean, great series and very entertaining, but they really show a horrible side of who we are instead of showing your movie or the movie of your mom. And, like there should be like other groups and other cohorts get to tell the full story. Right? We're not saying that we don't have narcos. What we're saying is that we're not only narcos. Unfortunately, in our community, we only get to tell that story because we're invisible in the others. And so I wanted to say this because I know that you have actually mentioned the democratizing of media, especially for Latinos. And, we actually have a case study where we talk about how music got democratized. So about 25 years ago, all this, Apple Music and, Pandora and Spotify, all these things emerged and they took away the right of distributing. And so you were suddenly able to put your, songs and your art, right? Your music art in a place. And then if people liked it, they just listened to it. And that's how, places like, Bad Bunny was created and all these different and enormous, amounts of our artists. And that happened already. So that was a democratizing of music. And hence today, you go to great parties, mainstream parties, and we have so many of our artists. That's happening actually in content creation, in video, in shows, in films. And it's really exciting to see because people like you suddenly found a way to actually do your content and people loving it. Not only Latinos love it, you cross over. People are watching you from every community and actually from every country, which is incredible. That's what I call democratizing of content creation. And so again, you guys are the hope because we're seeing, so as I tell you, we measured, right? And we're actually partnered with Nielsen for it. And we saw when we started measuring 8 years ago, TV and the channels and the typical traditional media ruled. Now, YouTube and TikTok and gaming and all these things are taking over because you guys have taken, the issue in your hands and you've actually changed and you are changing every day this industry. And all this to tell you, first of all, if you have any comments about it, but I also want you to finish just telling us, because I know, and we measured it, but telling us what is your perception of how stereotypes affect our lives. And and the reason of my question is, sorry, I'm speaking too much, but the reason of my question is that sometimes we create awareness about this, and some people tell us, well, I don't mind, I have my life and my business is successful. So if they don't think good about me, who cares? I want you to talk about what you know about how stereotypes affect us, and also how is this democratizing of media benefiting us.
Absolutely.
Sorry, my question was super long,
No,
but anyway.
I no, it's so true because for so long someone else has been controlling our narrative and our stories, and that's not the full picture. And we are so much more than that. And we are more than just, working outside in the agriculture industry or working on lawns, or as people in like the very lowest jobs. And that's just not at all our potential or who we are or where we actually are. And I think that because I was able to just, put together a video of my actual life and show people, no, my actual life is not that. My actual life is being at a very prestigious institution and accomplishing these goals that are very achievable for me and for anyone else who wants them. And they're not only meant for a certain group of people. And so I think that just the accessibility of media and how people all over the world can see and, the actual day-to-day life of people like me, it makes those dreams way more accessible. And it challenges the idea that certain people belong in certain industries and certain jobs and certain positions and certain spaces in life. And that's not, no one said that's the rule. It doesn't have to be that way. And something that I'm just always impressed with my generation and just in general, people on the internet is, challenging that idea that it's our decision to be who we want to be. And no one can take that from us, and no one, should have that power to take that from us. And, it just, when we can empower each other from across the country, from across the world, and you can build hope, coming back to instilling hope in people, then those obstacles, they disappear, and those dreams, you can truly believe in them for yourself and for your family and for, everyone. And so I think that social media has played a huge part in that, for sure. And I'm just so grateful that I get to benefit from being able to reach and being reached by other people. And I mean, just like other people have told me in my comments, I tell them back, si se puede. Like the message goes both ways,
Absolutely. And
And
don't believe the stereotypes,
yeah,
because according to traditional media, we're only 3% and half of us are criminals. So no, don't believe traditional media. Go to see people like you. And last but not least, again, I'm going to repeat that part of the question. Tell me some examples where people may not really think that we're affected by stereotypes, but we are. If you can think of maybe times in your experience or seeing others suffering it or that kind of stuff. Like, I'm going to give you an example. Like, when people unconsciously or consciously have a perceived idea of who Latinos are, for example, in admissions, right, in a big university like yours, they may see somebody that has the same, grades, the same curriculum activities, and one of them is Smith and the other one is Vasquez. And how does that affect? Again, subconsciously or unconsciously, perfectly decent people can have unconscious bias of who each is, and how that affects that choice, right? In equal circumstances. So tell me give me at least one example of maybe something that happened to you.
absolutely. I think that, because I have been privileged, with the education that I have, and that's opened internship opportunities for me that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise. But one summer, 2 years ago, I worked in New York City, at a hedge fund, and finance is traditionally very white male, space. And I definitely, stuck out. And you see me and you see my name, it's very obvious that I'm Hispanic and that, that's who I am. And so seeing that just the difference in kind of some of my peers who were also applying for these interviews and maybe had like connections, or maybe, had like people also in finance, and the stereotype that, like, oh, you study math, or like, oh, are you interviewing as well, like as if I didn't belong in that room, or it wasn't like a room that was traditionally meant for me, or that it was, oh, maybe there's obviously a lot of affirmative action allegations. It's like, oh, you're only here because of you had an extra boost simply because you're Hispanic, or or like you're not fully capable or at the same intelligence level, or that they try to find some kind of explanation to help them understand why we're in the same room. And it's like, no, I actually am perfectly capable, and I'm exactly on on your level, and I didn't have any boost, or just a freebie. And it's absolutely, I'm the color of my skin, or my last name, or my culture, that is not limiting at all whatsoever. In fact, it's empowering. um
Yeah,
but it
you have
is.
additional qualities, right? You have additional
Exactly.
tools. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
And but I mean, you really do see these unconscious, or maybe conscious, like biases that people have, and that I've encountered just because I have been in these spaces that have traditionally been reserved for white men.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's the perfect way to close, because Ada, what you're doing is combating that. What you're giving all of us is the certification of si se puede, and you're doing it, and how to do it. So we can only thank you for letting us ride that journey with you, and having a window to what you're doing. Please keep doing it. You're going to high places. You are already in high places, but you're going to even more, and we need you to continue sharing. And thank you for being here today. I know you're busy. I know your time in California is full of incredible adventures, hour by the hour. So we hope to have you again.
Thank you so much, Anna. It really
Of course.
is. I'm so honored, and I have so much admiration for you and all you're doing for our community. And thank you.
Well, thank you. I send you a hug, and enjoy California.
Thank you.